Tell me, you enjoying these last cool days of winter? Eternal optimist, I am. Well, it's gorgeous out there these days. Reach out your hand. Actually, the basis for this is something that was written well over 100 years ago. I'm going to be quoting from Emily Cady. In the early days of Unity, Charles Fillmore couldn't seem to stick to the simple stuff. He wanted to get off in the far reaches of things with all his writings. So when it came to writing a basic book, they asked Dr. Emily Cady. She was a homeopathic doctor back when women usually weren't doctors. He asked Dr. Emily Cady to write the basic book for Unity. She wrote Lessons in Truth, which we've used for over 100 years as Unity's basic textbook. But she actually wrote 3 books. One I'm going to be quoting from is How I Use Truth. These days they got a book that's got all 3 of them in it. Lessons in Truth, How I Use Truth, God a Present Help. I didn't look at How I Used Truth, but I know that Lessons in Truth was written in 1910. So, this is over 100 years old, I guarantee you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quote first from the intro, because in the intro to the book, she wrote why she wrote each chapter. Basically, she tells you her spiritual experience that was the basis for her then writing about this spiritual principle. So, first I'm going to read her spiritual experience as she tells it, and then I'm going to read, or at least a little piece of it, and then I'm going to read a passage from the chapter itself. And in that passage, she's going to say something about when this realization was given to a certain woman. Well, guess who we're really talking about here? I mean, in the opening, why I wrote it, she made that clear. Here we go. Intro. My own father, who though perfectly innocent had been kept in exile for 5 years. I believe this was in a foreign country, not here. Put there by the wicked machinations of another man. No process of law that I had invoked, no human help, not even the prayers that I had offered, had seemed to avail for his deliverance. One day, while sitting alone in my room, my hands busy with other things, my heart cried out, O God, stretch forth thy hand and deliver. Instantly the answer came. I have no hands but human hands. Your hands are my hands. Stretch it forth spiritually and give whatsoever you will to whomsoever you will, and I will establish it. Unquestioningly, I obeyed. And from that moment, without any further external help or striving, the way of his release was opened ahead of us more rapidly almost than we could step into. Within a few days, my dear father came home a free man, justified, exonerated, both publicly and privately, beyond anything we could have asked or thought. But actually the story's not over. She takes it up again in the chapter called God's Hand that she wrote based on this experience. When first the full recognition of there being but one hand was given to a certain woman, guess who? It was so real that for hours, whenever she looked at her right hand, she seemed unable to close it. So full of all good things did it seem. She said to herself, then if this be true, I have in my hand health to give the sick, joy to give the mourning, freedom to give those in bondage, and money to give those needing it. It only needs that I keep my hand open for all good gifts to flow out. To all who came to her that day in need of asking, she said mentally, here is just what you desire. Take it and rejoice. All my gifts are in my hand to give. It is God's hand. And the result of that day's work almost startled her. With such marvelous swiftness did the external manifestations of the heart's desire come to everyone to whom she gave the word. Reach out your hand. I have no hands, but human hands. Spirit can move through you. There are so many situations in which we are not up to it. We are not capable. But there is something inside of you, something flowing through you that can accomplish absolute miracles. Reach out your hand and turn the key, and know it's not your hand. It's that which is greater, flowing through you. This story's been with me, pretty much all my life, since I got into Unity when I was 15. And yet, upon occasion, I've actually had something similar, a similar feeling. I've had to learn slowly but surely that God can move through me. We so often think I got to learn to know what I'm doing. I got to practice a healing technique. I've got to practice a prosperity technique. I've got to make sure I know what's going on. And the bottom line is you don't need to. Because there's something greater that can flow through you. Miracles can happen through you that in the end, you know you didn't do. You had nothing to do with, except you were the empty channel through which something greater than yourself flowed. And that's the role that we have to learn to play. Some while back now, I found myself in a situation where I was sitting around and I was thinking about someone in need of healing. And I was just the desire of my heart, right? We're going back to words that Emily Cady used. The desire of my heart was that this person be healed. And so I was sitting there thinking and going, God can heal. God can move through this. And all of a sudden, I had the weirdest impulse. I wanted to reach out my hand, spiritually, you might say, and brush away the illness. And I thought, well, that's stupid. I don't know what I'm doing. I got no idea how to do that. Yeah, that's not me. And I thought, yeah, it's not you. So I stood up and I reached out my hand and I brushed, knowing it's not me. But sometimes you have to make the connection. You may only be the connection. In fact, hopefully you are, because if you're much more, it probably isn't going to work. You've got to have something greater than yourself flowing through you. But you've also got to commit yourself to knowing that God is moving here. That's what reaching out your hand and turning the key that Emily Cady described is all about. So you say, oh my God, was this person healed? No. Yes. By no, I mean I don't know. As circumstances went down, I wasn't able to be around to see results. But I have to know something happened, because that wasn't me. And every single one of us can do that. We can reach out our hand and turn the key. We can reach out our hand and give that blessing that's needed. It isn't us. No, you can't do it. Your ego's got no power like that. But God can move through you if you're willing to step aside and allow that something greater than yourself can happen through me. This is not a statement of ego and power. It is a statement of the greatest surrender you ever make. It is not I, but the Spirit within that does the work through me. Now, can you reach out your hand and touch someone? Oh yeah, we all can do that. And we can do it on several different levels. Just because something is invisible doesn't mean it's not real and not a part of your life. When I was in high school, I was into mind powers, so a friend and I, we were doing experiments with ESP, with mental telepathy. We took turns, one would become the receiver who would create this blank screen in your mind, and the other would be the sender, and the thing was you were allowed to pick up 10 objects. That was the restriction. It just had to be an object, any object. And project it. We found you had to put feeling behind it if you wanted to be successful. But by the time we were done, we had it up to an 80% success rate in transference. Yeah, you can do all kinds of things that are invisible. But there's a lot of levels to, quote, what is invisible. You can reach out and touch one with your being anytime you want. And will they feel it? Yeah, at least on a subconscious level. When I was years and years ago when I just first discovered the reality of reaching out with your heart and touching people. Well, actually, it was a dog. Over 45 years ago, we had a dog named Sunshine. Sunshine was half beagle, half basset. Had the cuteness of the beagle and the sad eyes of the basset. Just was a real winner. But he went crazy when he wasn't around his human beings, and he had a knack for getting in trouble. So one day, I don't know what Sunshine had done, but it was a Saturday night. He had really done something terrible, and so we did for him the worst punishment you could ever do to Sunshine. We put him out in the backyard without his people. And he's out there, and I am in the back bedroom, which has a door out into the backyard. This is in Miami. And I'm trying to write my talk. I'm the associate minister. I only get to speak once a month, so actually this may have been the period when I was founding the South Dade Church, and I was doing it every week. I don't know. But I was writing my lesson. And I'm trying to get all inspired and do everything. And I realize I've got this dog right outside my door going, I'm so unhappy. And I listened for a while and ignored it for a while, and then finally it was like, I got to do something about this. But I don't want to let him in. He was really bad. He needs to be out there. And I thought, well, take a moment, see if you can calm him down. Let's reach out with your heart and touch him. So I imaged myself reaching out from my heart and just kind of petting him and stroking him. And after about 30 seconds, he calmed right down. He quit whining. I thought, ooh, great. I went to work. I had a good 2 minutes. Then he started whining again. So I thought, well, that was a strange coincidence. Let's see if it happens again. I tried it again. 15 seconds this time. He's calm. And then when I let up, half the amount of time that it took him to figure it out last time, he's figured it out now. I did this at least 15 times. And by the end, whenever I put my heart on him, he stopped whining. Whenever I took it away, he started again immediately. There was no question about whether he knew when I was touching him. So, can you reach out and touch someone? Absolutely. But there's a huge difference between how I touched Sunshine and how Emily Cady reached out with her hand and turned the key. One was an act of the personal self, and one was a surrender to something far greater. We need to learn that. If you're praying for someone else, you need to know that it isn't you. You don't have to be a healer or a miracle worker. You just have to be an open channel. You just have to be someone who can step aside and allow God to move through your attention, your connection. You're reaching your hand out. It's just creating a roadway, a path. And the moment you realize it's not your hand, it's God's hand, something greater flows. I had a hard time learning that when I first got in the ministry. Mid-70s, early 70s when I first went there to Miami. They still had coconut palms all over all the, you had to watch where you parked your car. If one dropped, it was not good. By the time I left, there were no coconut palms in Miami. A couple over on the beach. So that's how far back it was. So I'm this young kid who's graduated out of ministerial school. And Dr. Neal, my senior minister, I'm 23, he's 63, which is really old. Or at least it used to be. It really isn't anymore. Dr. Neal had said, when people come to you, you're going to listen to them, you're going to talk with them, and you were going to pray with them before they go. And I went, oh, okay. I'll pray. I never felt like I was a really good prayer. I didn't figure I was capable of doing anything, but I certainly could mouth the words. And so people would come in, and we had this row of counselees came through, all kinds of things. Some were relationships, some wanted a job, some wanted healing, this and that and the other. And I started getting these calls. And people would call back and say, you are so powerful. I went out that afternoon and got a job immediately, like within hours of talking to you. And I got off the phone and I thought, that idiot believed me. But it kept happening. And I finally had to realize that in that counseling room, that wasn't about me. It wasn't about who I am or what I'm capable of. I had to understand when you dedicate your yourself to the sacred principle of helping someone, you're stepping out of the way. And something greater is moving through you, and miracles can literally happen that you have nothing to do with and you don't know anything about. But they do happen through you. That's what being the messenger of God is all about. Being the messenger of God is not a statement of aggrandizement or ego. It's a statement of the ultimate surrender. It's a statement that I step aside. And the power that is way beyond anything I understand flows through me. God will use any channel. So, if everyone can do this, if you can just get out of the way and know that God moves through you, then when you get that impulse to reach out your hand, spiritually I'm talking, when you get, though I did the physical action my time that I told you, but it was a physical action that was backed up by a spiritual sense that was happening over miles. When you get that impulse, reach your hand out and spiritually give the gift that needs to be given. You say, but I'm not really up to that, and you don't need to be. You just need to know that when you reach out your hand, it's not your hand. As Emily Cady said, it's God's hand. Turn the key. If you start to realize that, if you start to recognize that God can move through me, and you do make this surrender, and it is a surrender, not a statement of power, it's a statement of surrender. If you do make that, you will start receiving assignments. You'll suddenly realize that people come into your sphere, that you encounter people, you encounter situations. You are put in places and you are there to know, to reach out your hand and know. God is in this situation. God is here. The gift is given. And you'll take these assignments. Now, I want to once again just make absolutely clear there is a difference between personal action and divine action. When I reached out and touched Sunshine, that was a personal action. I was controlling it. When you pray for someone in need, and you reach out your hand and give them what they need invisibly, spiritually. That's a divine action when you know you have stepped aside. If you think your skill is enabling you to do this, you aren't there yet. Because it has nothing to do with skill. It has to do with the surrender that knows God moves through me. I am just awestruck by what happens when God moves through me, because I know I got nothing to do with it. So you got to know that something greater does move through you. You don't have to know what you're doing, because that which is greater knows what it's doing. You can do it lots of ways. You can reach out from your heart and surround someone in love. You can reach out from your heart and touch their back and stroke them, kind of like I stroked Sunshine. But the difference is in what you know about what you're doing. Do you know that that's God's hand? Do you know there's a greater power moving through you? this is not you doing. If you do, you're ready to pray for others. John 8:16. Jesus said, I'm not doing this alone, but I and my Father who sent me. That's the consciousness, if you want to see miracles in your life, that you need to be in. I'm not doing it alone. There's something greater moving through me. And in Matthew 10:19-20, he continues the idea. He's actually teaching his disciples, not just something Jesus did. He's teaching his disciples to go out and let this happen too. He says, do not worry as to how or what you will speak, for it will be given to you in that very hour. For it is not you who speak, but the Spirit of your Father who speaks through you. But I don't have the answers. You don't need them. The Spirit that flows through you does have the answers. The early Christians knew this. It's recorded in Acts, Peter and John, Acts 3:2-7. A certain man, lame from his mother's womb, lay at the gate of the temple, which is called Beautiful. The gate's called Beautiful, so that he might ask alms. And when he saw Simon Peter and John entering the temple, he begged of them to give him alms. And Simon Peter and John said, look at us. And he looked at them, expecting to receive something from them. And he looked at them, and Simon Peter said to him, Gold and silver have I none, but what I have I give to you. In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ of Nazareth, rise up and walk. And Peter took him by the right hand and lifted him up. And then in that very hour, his legs and feet received strength. Peter didn't know how to heal any more than you do. But Peter knew there was a power moving through him that would heal. And he knew it so thoroughly. He reached down and grabbed that man by the hand and yanked him to his feet. If something had not moved, that could have been a very bad scene. But he had the faith to know, Spirit moves through me. And something is happening here. Something is happening here. And he was able to back it up by reaching out with his hand. And in this case, physically drag him into his feet. John 14:12. Jesus teaches, truly I say to you, he who believes in me shall do the works which I do, and even greater than these things shall he do. You say, well, Jesus could do all this stuff. You realize that being a disciple means that you are to enter fully into the consciousness that Jesus expresses. It's not being a cheerleader saying, Jesus, he's our man. If he can't do it, nobody can. That's not what it's all about. It's following in his footsteps, doing the things that he did. You say, but I'm not up to that. No, but there's something inside of you that is. The things that I do, you will do. And greater things, meaning don't restrict it to what I've done. There's a whole lot more. When Spirit flows through you, the sky's the limit. Amazing things can happen. So I want to talk about 4 steps for allowing the power of God to flow through you. You can do it in affirmation form. First one is, I am never alone, for the Father presence is always with me. If you're going to have the power of God moving through you, you're going to have to start by feeling the presence of God. Okay? Making it close, up close and personal. Okay? People say, The Father presence. I don't like that word. Well, then use mother. I don't really care. Oh, I don't want to use that one either. Then use divine. But I'll tell you why I prefer Father and Mother over divine. When we say divine, we're able to keep it way out there at a distance. Father, Mother gives that, a loving father, a loving mother, gives you that sense of real closeness and caring. And it's important that we do understand that. The Spirit is right within you, loving you intensely right now. Exactly the way you are. With all your flaws. And don't try to say, I don't have any. You're in the earth. We define that by having flaws. But Spirit loves you the way you are. Right now. And you have to know that first. So, you want to work with that presence, talk to it. Ask for help. These days I do that a lot. I'm constantly losing things. And after I look for them a while, I say, okay, God, I need help now. I definitely need some help. This is nowhere I can find. And always within a minute or two, I find myself looking right at it. Wasn't at all where I thought it would be. You're allowed to develop a relationship, an inner working relationship with that Spirit within. I am never alone, for the Father presence is always with me together. I am never alone, for the Father presence is always with me. Now the second step is to realize that that presence can move through you and do amazing things. It is not I, but the Spirit within me that does the work through me. This is that stepping aside and allowing something far more powerful than you, than ego, than personal self to move through you. And you can do that. It's the surrender. It is not I, but the Spirit within me that does its work through me. You're not in charge, but you are the one who spiritually reaches out your hand. You're just a channel, an empty vessel through which Spirit now moves. Seems like a lot of my stories come from back a ways, so let's go back to those days in Miami again. One of my YOUers became one of the top flute students at the University of Miami. And she was in a music competition at some point, and her teacher had given her a piece that was that would show off her skills and her talents, but he'd kind of overstepped a little. There was one section in this piece that was just plain beyond her skill level. And every time she went through it, she could do the rest of the thing to perfection, but as she approached this one particular area, she stumbled her way through it, and that was that. And she was really quite worried about this. And just before she went out, she said, God, I need some help. You know, if you can help me in any way, there's that section and I can't play it. Afterwards, she reported. She told me, I played very well the sections that I knew I could play. But as I approached that one section that was beyond my skill level, as I approached that section, I literally lost control of my fingers and my breath. Here she is playing the flute. I was not blowing on the flute. I was not moving those fingers. Something else took over and played that passage to perfection. And as we exited out of that passage, I felt myself take over again. Wow, what an experience. And yet, that's what life is like. If you're willing to know that it is not I, but the Spirit within me that does its work through me. You don't need to be up to the task, because that which flows through you is up to the task. So it is not I, but the Spirit within me, together. It is not I, but the Spirit within me that does the work through me. Number 3, wherever I place my attention, whatever I place my attention upon grows and flourishes. Once you realize that you are always an open vessel, that something greater is moving through you, then you start realizing that wherever you place your attention, you are calling forth the goodness out of it. Not you, but that moves through you, is moving through your very attention to call the goodness out of that situation, that place, that person, everything that's going down. If you don't believe your attention means anything, just go shopping and place your attention on something. Really decide you want that. You think that'll be absolute wonderful, and then walk away from it and come back later. You'll often find someone's trying to buy it. I've gone into these used shops and seen ugly pieces of furniture that, I thought, I don't want that. I've seen it in there for like 3-4 months straight. And all of a sudden I think, I could really do something with that. Then I walk around the store while I'm making up my mind. And by that time I get back, somebody else is trying to buy it. It sat there for 4 months, 3-4 months, until I put my attention on it. That's what happens in life. If you're going to be an open channel and calling forth the goodness, whatever you place your attention on will grow and flourish, not because you're important, but because something of tremendous importance flows through you. Not because you're powerful, but because God power flows through the channel of your attention. That's what praying for others in the end is really all about. So let's do it. Whatever I place my attention upon grows and flourishes together. Whatever I place my attention upon grows and flourishes. And number 4 takes us to the edges. I am the messenger of God, and the power of God flows through me. You go, my God, that sounds like sacrilege. Oh, no. This is just the greatest surrender you've ever aspired to. Being the messenger of God is not a position of grandeur. It's a position of absolute surrender. I'm willing to say, and there is a whole stage to spiritual awakening that goes with this. It comes right after the stage in which you finally say, my life is dedicated to God, all of it. In which you say, my life is not my own. It belongs to God. Once that is firmly established, you move up. Spirit starts to flow through you, and you are the messenger of God. And wherever you go, something flows. Something happens. You don't do it. You got no power over it whatsoever. But there is no greater thrill than to watch miracles happen. Because you were there, something flowed, something happened that you did not do and had no control over. And yet wherever I go, miracles happen. And that is that whole stage of being the messenger of God. I am the messenger of God is, as I said, the greatest surrender you will make. No, actually, there's one more. We'll get there later. I'm going to recommend if you ever get to this stage, stay there, because the next surrender is really rough. That's surrender of identity. I am not who I think I am. But let's not go there. That's not this lesson. If you can be in this space, I am the messenger of God. This is not my hand, it's God's hands. Then you will know the power of God flows through you. Chaplains have to learn this one. No one ever joins the chaplaincy program thinking they're really good at praying and so they ought to do this. They generally join it with great trepidation. Oh my God, I have to pray with people? I'm looking at someone out there who's just smiling. Yeah, I understand. But then it's not just chaplains, it's anyone who's going to pray for anyone else. You better not be depending upon your own resources. You better know there's something greater moving through me. That all I have to do is agree to be the channel. And something will happen. So if you're the messenger of God, you're going to look for assignments. And you're going to know God is just waiting to move through your attention to draw goodness out of all kinds of situations. You aren't going to be able to demand that it comes out of this or it comes out of that. But you're going to watch. And the Spirit within will do its work through you, and you will watch miracles happen everywhere you go. When you know I am the messenger of God, and the power of God flows through me. Well, let's do that together. I am the messenger of God, and the power of God flows through me. When you know that, you can, just like Emily Cady, reach out your hand and turn the key. Because it's not your hand. As she said in the title to her chapter, it's God's hand. And miracles flow. Let's close our eyes. Father, give us the strength to step aside and to know your Spirit flows through us and anything is possible. Amen. The ushers who come forward will prepare for offering. Let's hold our offering in our hands. We're going to affirm that spiritual principle that creates prosperity. Let's do it together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. Thank you, God. Amen.